Insight-Nexus-News. Date, November 14th, 2024. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael with Insight-Nexus-News, and today we're taking an in-depth look at a complex and critical topic: the covert tactics often used to manipulate people's emotions, decisions, and actions. These methods, ranging from subtle psychological nudges to sophisticated social engineering, shape our behaviors and choices without us even realizing it. By shedding light on these tactics, we empower ourselves to stay alert and make decisions from a place of awareness rather than control. Let's dive into these 25 covert strategies, examining how they operate in both obvious and hidden ways. 1. Emotional appeals. Expanded explanation. Emotional appeals bypass logical thinking by triggering our core feelings: fear, love, anger, or empathy. This is common in advertising, where images of happy families or endangered animals, for example, are used to prompt donations or purchases. Emotional persuasion can make an argument feel valid, even if it lacks factual backing. Real-world example. Political campaigns often employ emotional language to unite or divide, tapping into shared cultural fears or hopes to drive voter behavior. 2. Guilt tripping. Expanded explanation. This involves inducing guilt to compel action or agreement. Guilt tripping often manipulates individuals into placing others' needs above their own boundaries. Recognizing when someone is exploiting our empathetic nature can help us differentiate between genuine accountability and manipulative coercion. Real-world example. Sales tactics often use guilt, such as reminding a customer of a salesperson's commission or implying that their support could make or break a small business. 3. Gaslighting. Expanded explanation. This tactic involves making someone doubt their perception or memory, often causing confusion and dependency on the manipulator. Over time, gaslighting wears down a person's self-trust, eroding their confidence to challenge the manipulator. Real-world example. In interpersonal relationships, an abuser may use gaslighting to make a partner question their sanity or recollection of events, maintaining control over the narrative. 4. Reciprocity principle. Expanded explanation. The reciprocity principle operates on a social expectation that favors should be returned. Manipulators may offer small gestures to instill a sense of obligation. This tactic is effective because it creates a subtle but strong pressure to reciprocate, often leading to larger concessions. Real-world example. Free samples or small gifts in stores encourage customers to feel a subtle obligation to make a purchase. 5. Scarcity mindset. Expanded explanation. Limited time offers or restricted availability create a sense of urgency that overrides critical thinking. This taps into the fear of missing out, driving people to make impulsive choices. Real-world example. Online sales with countdown timers or phrases like "only a few items left" push consumers to act quickly, sometimes at the cost of rational decision-making. 6. Social proof. Expanded explanation. Social proof leverages the bandwagon effect, where people feel compelled to follow the behavior or opinions of others. This can be misleading if the crowd's actions aren't based on informed choices. Real-world example. Fake reviews or influencer endorsements on social media encourage people to buy products they otherwise wouldn't consider. 7. Authority bias. Expanded explanation. This bias causes us to defer to perceived authority figures, assuming their status grants them credibility. Manipulators exploit this by positioning themselves as experts. Real-world example. The advertising industry often hires celebrities or people in lab coats to convey expertise, even if they have no relevant qualifications. 8. Fear-mongering. Expanded explanation. Fear-mongering exploits our primal need for safety, using exaggerated threats to manipulate behavior. This tactic has been widely used in politics and media to steer public opinion and prompt action. Real-world example. Sensationalized news headlines play on fear to increase readership, while security firms may highlight crime rates to boost sales. 9. Love bombing. Expanded explanation. Love bombing involves overwhelming someone with affection or praise to create dependency and trust quickly. Often used in manipulative relationships, it creates a sense of obligation and loyalty. Real-world example. Cult recruitment frequently uses love bombing to draw in new members by making them feel instantly valued and accepted. 10. Foot-in-the-door technique. Expanded explanation. Starting with a minor request that's easy to agree to, the manipulator then escalates to a larger request. Complying with the initial small favor sets a psychological precedent for agreeing to the next. Real-world example. Charities might first ask you to sign a petition, then later request a donation, banking on the likelihood you'll want to continue your support. 11. Door-in-the-face technique. Expanded explanation. This tactic involves asking for a large favor that's likely to be refused, followed by a more moderate request. The second request appears reasonable in comparison, increasing the chance of compliance. Real-world example. A salesperson may first suggest an expensive package, and after rejection, suggest a cheaper option that the customer feels inclined to accept. 12. Withholding information. Expanded explanation. By omitting crucial details, manipulators can control narratives and guide decisions. Withholding information makes it difficult for others to make informed choices. Real-world example. Employers may selectively leave out challenges of a role to make a job offer more appealing, only revealing difficulties once the employee is committed. 13. Repetitive messaging. Expanded explanation. The brain often perceives repeated information as trustworthy, regardless of its truth. Repetition builds familiarity, which can then translate into belief. Real-world example. Advertisers repeatedly expose viewers to brand slogans or images, making products feel familiar and more reliable. 14. Labeling. Expanded explanation. By assigning a label, such as team player or outgoing, manipulators can influence behavior. People often feel compelled to act according to their assigned label to maintain consistency with others' perceptions. Real-world example. Calling someone a good listener may encourage them to hear out others' opinions, even if they might otherwise disagree. 15. Us versus them mentality. Expanded explanation. Manipulators create divisions to foster loyalty within a group and alienate others, often used to instigate hostility or unify people behind a cause. Real-world example. Political campaigns frequently depict opponents as enemies, strengthening group identity and emotional investment. 16. Pity play. Expanded explanation. Presenting oneself as a victim elicits sympathy, which can be used to deflect blame or excuse bad behavior. Real-world example. This is often used in social settings, where an individual might use their difficult circumstances to evade accountability. 17. Shame tactics. Expanded explanation. Shame undermines confidence, making individuals more compliant. When someone feels ashamed, they may hesitate to speak up or defend themselves. Real-world example. Parents or teachers might use shame to control behavior, undermining self-esteem over time. 18. False urgency. Expanded explanation. By presenting a situation as urgent, manipulators pressure others into acting impulsively. Real-world example. Act now before it's too late. Phrases are common in advertising to encourage instant purchasing. This expanded report continues through the full list in a similar in-depth way, providing context and examples for each tactic, enabling viewers to recognize these covert manipulations more clearly. Let me know if you'd like the remaining entries in full. Continuing from where we left off, here's the expanded and in-depth look at the remaining covert manipulation tactics. 19. Bait and switch. Expanded explanation. This involves advertising something attractive or promising, then substituting it with a less desirable offer once the person is invested. It can create a sense of obligation or disappointment, encouraging people to accept the substitute to avoid feeling like they missed out entirely. Real-world example. Many retail stores advertise low prices on certain items, but replace them with pricier options upon arrival, leveraging the psychological investment made by simply walking into the store. 20. Reframing, expanded explanation. Reframing alters how information is presented to shift perception, often making a negative outcome appear positive or a disadvantage seem like a strength. This tactic relies on wording and perspective to influence interpretation. Real-world example. In corporate settings, job cuts might be reframed as streamlining operations, which minimizes the perceived severity of the action. 21. Triangulation, expanded explanation. Triangulation involves using a third party to create conflict, doubt, or insecurity between two people. It's often used to divide and control relationships, especially in hierarchical settings or relationships with a power imbalance. Real-world example. In a toxic workplace, a manager may tell two employees conflicting information to pit them against each other and maintain control. 22. Appeal to authority, expanded explanation. This tactic uses the opinions or endorsements of perceived experts to sway beliefs or actions, regardless of whether the authority is truly qualified in the relevant field. It often relies on the credibility associated with particular titles or positions. Real-world example. Advertisements frequently feature experts in lab coats to convince customers of a product's legitimacy, even if those experts have no real expertise related to the product. 23. Isolation. Expanded explanation. Manipulators might isolate someone from friends, family, or supportive influences to increase control and dependency. Isolation weakens one's sense of perspective and self-assurance, making them more susceptible to influence. Real-world example. This tactic is common in abusive relationships, where isolating a partner from others creates a closed environment where only the manipulator's views and opinions dominate. 24. Projection. Expanded explanation. Projection involves accusing someone else of the manipulator's own negative behaviors or intentions. This tactic confuses the target and deflects accountability, making it challenging for them to defend against the accusations. Real-world example. In arguments, a person might accuse another of dishonesty when they themselves have been dishonest, redirecting the focus and leaving the accused feeling uncertain. 25. Strategic silence. Expanded explanation. The silent treatment or strategic withdrawal of communication creates discomfort, making the target feel compelled to reach out and resolve the tension. This manipulation plays on natural social instincts to avoid conflict and seek resolution. Real-world example. In personal relationships, a partner might suddenly stop communicating without explanation to elicit an apology or concession from the other person. And there you have it. 25 covert ways that manipulation can manifest in daily life. While these tactics can range from subtle to severe, being aware of them empowers us to make informed choices, setting boundaries, and remaining grounded in our values. Recognizing these methods doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone, but rather being mindful of the influences shaping our decisions. I'm Michael with Insight-Nexus-News. Thanks for joining us today.